Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update about the current situation here in Spain. Day 24 of the lockdown. And remember that we're working towards April the 26th when apparently these latest lockdown rules will be reassessed. So we'll wait and see what happens from that date on. Now, firstly, I just want to say thanks to all of the people that are leaving comments on the videos. I go through most of the comments. Obviously, I can't go through all of them, more than 600 comments on the last video, but it's good to see people from Panama, Namibia, South American countries, the USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, different places around the world that are leaving their comments and telling us what their self-isolation rules are like, their lockdown rules, their confinement rules are like, and it's interesting to see what different people are going through at this particular point in time. So keep those comments coming along. Now, I want to give a big shout out to people that have supported the channel with a donation over the last few days. I'll run those names here. So a big shout out for you, and it is greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for that. Now let's have a look at some of the main stories that have caught my eye over the last few days. Now the first one here today, hot off the press, we can see that Spain has registered a spike in infections due to the weekend effect and adds 743 more fatalities. And we can see here that there were cases in Spain over the weekend where the police had to act. For example, in Seville, as we can see here, they had to cancel a mass on the roof of a church in Triana because obviously now in Seville, the Semana Santa, the Holy Week, the Easter celebrations are just kicking off, and it's a very important time in that particular part of the world. And we can see a picture here of the ceremony. Now, some positive news has been circulating over the last few days, and it is that there will possibly be fewer restrictions after Easter. A few of the government ministers here have been suggesting that this will be the case. Exactly what restrictions will become less strict, no one really knows. But we can see here that the government will decide over the next few days whether it's possible to start de-escalating the restrictions after Easter, according to Nadia Calviño. And if the restrictions were relaxed, the state of emergency would stay in place, but people would be allowed to move around more. Now, one of the things that I've heard is that maybe people are going to be allowed to go for a walk. They'll be able to take the kids out for a walk. I don't think you'll be allowed to go out in family groups, but maybe one parent will be able to take children for a walk or let them do a little bit of exercise. And maybe some of the restrictions regarding exercise will also be lifted, but we have to wait and see on that. Another piece of news that caught my attention today was an interview with Josep Borrell. Borrell is a former minister here in Spain. He now has a role in the European Union, and he says that the state will not only be the last lender, it will be the first employer, consumer, and the first owner. Now, what he means by this is that when he was asked if there will be more state or a bigger state, let's say, he said that it will highlight the role of the state, which appears not only to be the lender of last resort. Now the state is the employer of last resort, the consumer of last resort, the owner, because companies with nationalizations, even if temporary, will inevitably have to be capitalized, and the insurer of last resort. The presence of the state will increase. It will be permanently. We will have to get used to not considering public health or security systems as a burden, not considering them as a problem to be reduced, but as an essential asset of a society. So as we can see here, prominent politicians believe that the state is going to have an even more prominent role in our lives. Now, I'll let you guys decide whether that's a good thing or a bad thing in the comment section below. But obviously, depending on your political leanings, it's going to be good or it's going to be bad. So I'll let you guys work that one out. Now, another piece of news here is that Spain is moving to permanently establish universal basic income in the wake of the pandemic. And the minister says that it could stay forever. Spain is taking steps to implement a basic income to help citizens weather the economic fallout from the virus, which could make it the first nation in Europe to do so. We're going to do it as soon as possible so that it can be useful and not just for this extraordinary situation, and that it remains forever, the Minister of Economic Affairs said. So another idea that's been put out there, that everybody in Spain gets a small amount of money from the government every month. Is it a good idea or is it a bad idea? Do we all become too dependent on the state? Does it quash entrepreneurialism? That's the debate in question. Now, there's been a bit of talk about mobile applications that have been developed by the government that can track people's whereabouts. And we can see here that Spain's new virus app could detect violators of lockdown rules. but sources say the information will not be used for this purpose, but rather to give users personalized responses on regional health protocols. So they're obviously trying to paint this in a positive light and not as a violation of people's freedoms. But remember that Google has a lot of this information already. So if it falls into the hands of governments, who knows what could happen. Now, a little bit about the economic fallout from the current situation. There was an article in the paper here that said that without holidays and with work on weekends to avoid an economic catastrophe. A study by the Autonomous University of Barcelona suggests that gradually recovering activity with measures to recover work lost due to hibernation. So we can see here that the trend seems to be that we're going to have to renounce holidays, renounce weekends, and start working extra hours in order to get the economy back on track, or at least that's what I understand from this article. So again, I'll let you guys discuss it in the comments section if it is something you would be willing to do. Would you be willing to give up your holidays and your weekends in order to get the economy back on track, as this study suggests? Now, another article here that caught my attention from the investing.com website. We will pay for the vices that the virus spreads today. And we can see here that it seems that people confined and bored are drinking more alcohol, smoking more weed, watching more porn, and smoking more cigarettes. These behaviors can alleviate monotony and confinement stress in the short term, but will come at a cost in the future. So this article obviously suggesting that our short-term behavior is going to give us problems in the long run. So we need to be careful about that. Now, some of the comments from the last video. Sully number 1 says, very informative, Stuart. I live in Catral, Alicante. My wife informs me that the church was open for Mass last Sunday. Not happy about that. Yeah, again, we saw that in Seville. There was also the case of a priest in Bilbao who was roaming the streets as well, breaking the lockdown rules. Again, remember, this is a very important time for a lot of people here in Spain, these Holy Week celebrations. And a lot of people are going to be tempted to break the lockdown rules and go to church because they put that above everything else. So that's probably the reason for that. David says, hi, another great video. Here in the UK, the government have tried the soft approach, but people as usual taking the piss. I'm sure we will have a full lockdown at some point. Hopefully, David, it doesn't get to that stage. I did see some reports of people last weekend when the weather was good in the UK going to parks around London, lots of people gathering. So hopefully it doesn't come to that because you don't want the strict lockdown rules that we have here. Now, Sean Mitchell says, nice approach using viewers' comments. The problem with the conspiracy theories is that it can also lead to irrational and even violent actions. I read today in the newspaper that 4 telecommunication towers in the UK had been set on fire because people were convinced that the virus is caused by 5G. Apparently, workers there were also physically and verbally abused. I find it difficult to believe that this is actually happening in the UK, but there you go. Now, I did read this in the newspaper, and I am surprised that it is happening. I personally don't believe the theory, but I understand that there are a lot of people that do. But as I said in the last video, there are a lot of alternative theories out there, and very difficult to stop them spreading on the internet. And unfortunately, as we can see here, it does lead to irrational behavior in some cases. Now, another one here from Alex. A slip of the tongue, perhaps. President, don't you mean Prime Minister? Or is it the President of the Community of Madrid, but she is a lady? Confused by he will seek an extension to the lockdown. Now, here in Spain, they use the term President and not Prime Minister. They also have presidents of autonomous communities. So the President of the Autonomous Community of Madrid, the President of Cantabria, the President of Catalonia, for example. They are also known as presidents, but Pedro Sánchez is the President of the government of Spain. In the UK, you'd probably call him Prime Minister. I know that in Australia, we use the term Prime Minister. In Canada, they use the term Prime Minister. But here in Spanish, the term is President, and that is why it's translated that way in some of the articles. Now, one here from Anth. She says, Hola, Stuart. You were the first channel of the day I checked for current news on Spain, so I'm thankful. My family is in Vigo. I live in Perth, WA, but I have spent years in Spain. This confinement is so difficult for them, it breaks my heart. Can you tell me if there is anything medical or useful I can post to them? Now, I don't know if there's anything that you can post to them or anything that they can't get here in Spain. Pharmacies are working well. Supermarkets are working well. All of those supplies are there. So really, there's nothing that I can think of. The only shortage I see is with face masks, and there is a rumor that they might become compulsory and you can't really get them here in Spain. You can try to order them on Amazon, but they take about a month to get here. So I don't know whether you can get them in Perth and send them over, but that could be something that you could send to people in Vigo should they not have them already. But again, now I know that it says here that they won't tell you the specifics, but talk to them and see if there's anything that they need, and maybe you can source it in WA. Matt Miller says, I live in the USA and people are not really taking this seriously. Many people are still going to church and I feel that this is going to promote the spread of the virus. I myself am holed up in my home since March 13th. I hope you continue to give us updates because this is so important to know what's going on in other countries. Take care. Yeah, Matt, obviously a lot of people still going to church, a lot of people still congregating because obviously it is a priority in their life at this particular time and they feel that that's what they need to do. You're probably right. It probably is exacerbating the spread of the virus, but time will tell regarding that. And I saw a comment from somebody else saying that they like to watch these videos because they get an idea of what's happening in Spain and reading the comments and seeing what other people are going through in different parts of the world. So please keep those comments coming and let us know what your particular situation is like. Anton says, I'd like to see you get a little annoyed about this. You surely can't be taking this so calmly. Now, Anton, I try to be as calm as possible. If you want to see me get angry, come and spend 24 hours with me because there are moments during the day when my mood does go up and down like a yo-yo. But to be honest, there's not a lot I can do about the situation. Am I worried? Yes. Am I worried about my family? Yes. Am I worried about my friends? Yes. But I understand that we have to do what we have to do. We're all in the same situation. And I'm just trying to do my bit. And a lot of other people tell me that they appreciate my calmness in these videos. Daniel here says, myself and my family have ties to Spain. People there are saying it is a war zone. And Tim replies, not yet. It appears very tranquil. I agree with Tim. I don't get the sense that it is a war zone. Then again, I've been confined to my home for the last 24 days. I continue to give my English lessons on the telephone, so I do speak to a lot of people, and the majority of people that I speak to are calm, so I don't think it's a war zone yet. Now, Suzanne here says, hi Stuart, I've been watching your video since all this started and investigated the channel further, really enjoying. Went shopping this week where I always do, and on the way home I was stopped by the police and told that I had gone too far. It does feel like I am being punished even though I am very respectful of the lockdown and only leave once a week to do my groceries, as always with mask and gloves. Yeah, so Suzanne, I can understand that this is a bit frustrating, especially if you do have a favorite supermarket that's not the closest one to your home. In my particular case, I can hop in the car and go to supermarkets that are not the closest one to where I live. But I understand that in different areas in Spain, police are treating this problem differently. And there have been some people that haven't been behaving responsibly. And here in Spain, that expression that I said the other day, justos por pecadores, where everybody gets punished for the sins of a few, is definitely a problem in some areas. So the only thing I can suggest is that you do what the police say. Try not to argue because they will slap you with a fine, but I can understand your frustration. So that's all I have to talk about today. Questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. I'll let you guys debate the situation out. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.